Here are the top 10 reasons why you suck at mixing. Your audience does not even know you're using a $500 plugin. Even if you tell them, they don't care. They just only care if it sounds great to their ears and if it works with the mix as a whole. So keep that in mind when you're mixing. It's not so much about which plugins to use, it's which one can you use that you have will make your mix sound amazing. Number 4. I'm just as guilty as everyone on this one, but this is something that we always tend to do, which is focusing on too much of the fine detail. We're so concerned about making that delay go off. We're so concerned of that guitar gliding over the band context. We're just so focused on these minor details that we're forgetting that what really matters is the whole mix itself. How does it sound? We're just wasting too much time on making one thing sound good, but then we're neglecting how the mix actually sounds. And the most important thing to remember is that at the end of the day, as much as those effects can make a difference, the overall mix and the overall balance of the mix needs to be very good and captivating your audience. Number 5 is that you gotta approach your mix in a different way. And what I mean by that is that you wanna approach your mix in a visual context as well. I made a video on this that I have on my channel that's about visualizing your mix, and that's pretty much what it's about. So you want to not only listen to your mix as a piece of music, but you also want to see it as a piece of art. And what I mean by that is that you want to imagine where those tracks sit. Imagine where they stand as almost like a play. You want to see where your main actors should stand, how far they are from the audience, how are the other essentially staff actor and actresses on that stage is positioned. What are they wearing? What are they doing? And that's essentially what you want to do with the mix. You want to do the same thing. You want to give some life and create that visual immersion, even though it is a very audio thing. So that's something you got to keep in mind, and I highly recommend that you check out my visual mix for this portion. Number 6, you're just not mixing enough. Like any skill-based thing, it doesn't matter if you're playing baseball, you're kicking a ball, or you're playing hockey, or you're scrubbing the floor and getting this oversized hockey puck to the middle section. Curling. It doesn't matter what it is, mixing's the same thing. Your first 10 to 20 mixes are guaranteed to be ash. Or I should say terrible, because let's face it, anything you do will require a lot of learning, and you're gonna just encounter a lot of issues when you mix. And it's different depending on genre, and it's dependent on how the recording quality of the tracks are. So all those play a huge role in how you mix, and there's always new encounters and new things that get in the way of mixing. But there's always one universal truth, and that is pretty much the mixing process, the mixing flow, as you can call it. And that's something that you will know regardless of the different genres you're working with, that it's something that you can stick with. And as long as you can understand how to get good at using an EQ, for example, or a compressor, then you'll notice a huge difference going to your 30th mix, that it's already starting to sound exactly how you want it. So yeah, mix more. Number 7, using a proper mix flow. So what I mean by mix flow is there's a process in how you arrange and set things up for your mix section that you're not taking full advantage of. All you simply do is that you're either very messy, you just throw all your tracks in, or B, you're just simply not doing a very good job of organizing and structuring your mix flow. And by mix flow, what you want to do is that you want to organize your tracks in a way where you want to start with what you want to work with, and it's easy to identify and look for things. So for example, let's take a look at what I have here on the corner here on my screen. All right, so when I'm talking about mix flow, I'm talking about how do you arrange your tracks? What is going in order? How do you arrange your tracks in a way where you work best at in order, in the preference that you want to work your mix on? So generally what I do is I work on tracks, then I have a bass guitar, then guitars, and then we work our way all the way down to the vocals. And you probably noticed as well that there's actually a lot of colors on it. And that's another important thing about creating proper workflow, is that you want to color code your tracks. So anytime I want to look for a track, I will automatically know just by looking at this where it's roughly located and what color it is. So I always know that my vocals is red, and it's always at the very bottom. So if I go there, there's only a few red sections here, and everything else is pretty much empty. So this is why it's very important to have a proper workflow. So number 8, why you suck at mixing, is that you're not taking full advantage of your speakers. So it could be anything from your computer speakers, your phone speaker, your laptop speaker, your car speakers. What else is there? Your monitors. As I mentioned about reference speakers, what you want to do is that you want to listen to your mix on those different types of speakers to see how it sounds. Let's face it, we all can't afford a $100,000 speaker setup and a studio-proof room. A soundproof room, a isolated room that's designed to contain all the sounds. We don't have that. All of us don't have that luxury to house in such speakers. So you want to think about how your average listener is listening to the mix. So most likely they're either on a jog, with earbuds popped in, or maybe they're using Bluetooth earbuds now with the Raycons and stuff like that, or they're simply using headphones or listening through a Bluetooth speaker, and you want to see how they sound on those speakers, because every speaker system that you use tells you something different. So when you use a car speaker, what you're trying to look for is how is the low end, how are the mids and highs playing along with that. And then when you listen on your phone, you want to be able to hear your mids, despite generally with cell phone speakers, they're not very ideal in hearing the lows, especially as they're very more mid frequency oriented. So that's something you want to consider when you're mixing, is that you want to use reference monitors or speakers and use that to your advantage. The 9th reason why you suck at mixing is that you're simply not asking enough feedback, some live feedback from people. It's very important to know how people receive the mix. You might think it sounds like the most amazing mix in your studio, on your headphones, in your car, whatever the case may be, but the thing is, your mix will be listened to the mass audience. So you want to get natural, unbiased feedback from your audience. So an interesting fact is that females tend to have better hearing than men, as it's a thing about our genetics that females do have better hearing for. It's kind of a survival thing, maybe. But the most important part is just to get their feedback back. Get their feedback on your mix. So if you have a musician friend, ask them to listen to your mix, because they'll give you a more direct feedback, a response that will be really helpful immediately. And you can get a few other people that are just your friends to listen to the mix. And as long as they're honest with what they're hearing, the mass audience should be okay and accepting of your mix. All right, so we get into the final number 10 spot of why you suck at mixing. And this is a very important one, is you're not optimizing your mixing environment. So what I mean by mixing environment is that you want to have a dedicated spot in the house or a dedicated set of headphones to mix properly. The thing about when your mixing environment is that when you're essentially listening to your mix, things like the room size, things like reverb and stuff like that do affect how you listen to your mix. So as you can hear my voice here in the studio here, it sounds a lot dry, as that these side things, as you can see at the very back there, the little panels and stuff, is that they absorb sound, so that it gives my voice a kind of a more drier quality. And that stuff will really help make a difference in how you interpret your mix. As the problem is, if you mix, let's just say outside this studio, I have a big hall in where if you try to listen to any type of music, it sounds very elongated, the sound. So it sounds like they're further than it should be, like a lot spacier. And that will affect your perception of how you mix. So you want to be very mindful in how you treat your mixing environment, especially if you're doing it from home, or especially even if you use headphones. When you use headphones, you want to EQ. Let's just say I'll show you guys a little quick thing, so bear with me again with this horrible screen transitioning here. Alright, so when I mentioned about mixing on headphones is a little bit different than mixing in a dedicated spot, but you can kind of do the same thing for either or, using a headphone or having a dedicated spot for mixing. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're on the go, you're most likely using headphones. And what you want to do is that you want to EQ your mix according to how your headphones are. So not to get overly technical, but it doesn't matter what brand of headphones you're using. Each headphones have a specific EQ, if to put in easier terms, is designed for a sound preference. So let's just say if we're talking about Dr. Dre's, generally they emphasize kind of like the low end. So generally their headphones will boost more of that low end naturally, even without using a optionable EQ on it. So generally those headphones are already pre-EQ'd in order to fit their standards. So doesn't matter what your headphones are. The most important thing is if you're using those type of headphones where it's not flat. So flat meaning not altered, and there's barely any increase or decrease on any frequency zones, then you will have to throw on some type of EQ. So what you want to do is, if you do use those type of headphones where it boosts specific frequencies like Bose headphones, you want to throw on an EQ. And what you want to do is use this to pre-adjust your EQ so you can rebalance to hear what it should actually sound like, as that the headphones that you're using will affect how you're hearing it. All right, so that wraps it up for today's video. I hope you guys were able to learn something new and are able to maybe look into incorporating these practices into your next mix, as that's the only real way you can really improve. All right, if you enjoyed this content, please subscribe and like this video, as I found out that's the YouTube channel life. You just have to get people to like your stuff so the algorithm favors your videos. I really appreciate your time watching my videos. All right, I think that's about it. I hope you guys have an amazing day, time, week, whenever you're watching this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll be seeing you guys on the next video.